Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is Dustin Butler with Flip Flop Speed Shop, and here we are with the Murcielago, and I'm going to show everybody how to do an oil change on the car. This is a little bit different, obviously. This isn't the Mayhem Mercy. It doesn't have an LS in it, so we're going to, like I've talked about in the last video, we're going to show you a little bit of differences between the V12 Mercy and the LS Mercy, and this is no exception to change the oil. If you're going to have one of these and you're like me, you know, you want to do your own service on it. You don't want to have to rely on Lamborghini to do all your service for you, or, you know, obviously, unless you have more money than I do. So we're going to go over the quirks of what you need to know and what you don't need to do to the car to change oil. So since this engine does not have the oil port right here to put the 4 quarts you need to in the engine, all fill has to be filled up through the dry sump system here. So to check the oil, Lamborghini recommends that you check the oil at 80 degrees, let the engine idle for 60 seconds at an RPM range of 1400 to 1600 RPMs for 60 seconds, and let the engine idle for 5 seconds, switch engine off and check the oil within 1 inch. We're gonna do that at the end. So I'm gonna raise the car up. I'm gonna show you the plugs that we need to drain and how you need to drain them. And here we go. So here we go, up at the car. Everybody asked me how I like this single post lift. This lift was installed by my grandpa in 1973, and it works great. I love this lift. It works great for detailing the cars. It's perfect for one of these cars. I don't know what it would cost to have one installed nowadays, but I enjoy it here. Little safety catch, let her down on it. Okay, so while you're under here, kind of want to inspect everything. You want to make sure that there's no leaks. You know, front diff's not leaking, any seals, any boots on your axles. All-wheel drive's still intact on this car. So go down it. It's a really clean. It hasn't really rubbed anything. These are just typical from being lifted. Pans on these are carbon fiber, and they're coated in a rubber coating. Just go down the car. Everything is really nice on this car. There's a little bit of wetness here. It looks like it's coming from this gasket, these aluminum gaskets, which you need to replace each time. These are 8mm bolts. And the next one that you're going to want to take off is this right here. This right here goes to the dry sump system. If you look, there is a nut on the top side. It's like a banjo bolt, and it holds on the feed tube to the motor. I apologize. So to get this off, you do not want to break this loose. If not, you have to remove this whole panel and get the new banjo fitting bolts to tighten it back down. So the quick way to get this off is to hit it with an impact really fast to get it off and break it loose. So we'll see what happens here. Oh yeah, and it looks like the gasket has given up on this. These Murcielagos at high RPM hold a tremendous amount of oil PSI. I think it's 6.5 bars or something like that. Which I believe is around 77, 80 PSI. So that's a good sign that you need to, obviously, you need to keep an eye on that. But everything else looks good. All the boots are good. Everything's dry. You know, all the boots are well. So now what you'll need for this job, it's an 8mm, 17mm, again on an impact, and I'll show you the reason why we're using the impact. Obviously I have an assortment of copper washers to replace the ones that are on there. The Mercy oil filter, which is an OEM UFI. Obviously some shop towels to clean up later, some Fast Orange, and some Castrol Edge is what I'm going to be using, the Eurocar 5W40. So there we go. There should be approximately 4 quarts of oil come out of these. Weren't very tight. 4 quarts of oil will come out of these, and if you have the oil fill in the top, you really want to measure what comes out of the engine, because that is how much I'm sorry. That's how much oil you want to put back into the engine. Again, this engine does not have the oil fill, so we'll be filling the dry sump system. Starting it, and then we'll be, topping it off and checking the oil here. So, and it looks like it's definitely was ready for an oil change. Front plug is almost done draining here. We're gonna pull the back one. The good thing about the pan I'm using is we have a plug here and a plug here. It's the right width. I'm using a flow tool, model number 05080MI. It works great for pulling both plugs, and then you can let them drain. Get this one loose. It wasn't super tight either. They don't need to go in super tight, because you don't want to have to change the oil again and strip your pan out, which can happen. There won't be near as much coming out of this one since we pulled the front one. It's just what's in this little cavity here. It's already almost done. We'll let it finish. And then we'll get the Lamborghini manufacturer spec, and we'll tighten those back down with the new crush washers. Almost done draining here. But I wanted to show you guys the crush washers that came off of this are M16 1.5. I ordered these on eBay. That's an assortment, which is great for any European cars. This is what we'll be using back instead of the aluminum ones. I like the copper ones. They seal up a little bit better. So. I'm not going to clean that off anymore because it's just going to keep dripping. The threads look good. A little bit more involved than the Mayhem Mercy LS swapped Murcielago oil change. We're going to tighten those down. We're going to go look at the specs. We're going to snug those down. So we have the drain plugs back in. The factory torque on the bolts is 45 Newton meters, which if you have a US spec car or don't have a Newton meter wrench, that actually figures out to be 33.19 foot-pounds. So we went 34 foot-pounds on them, give it a little extra snug. We will do the torque stripes. I'll clean these off. We'll line these back up so we know if we're driving, if they leak or we see anything, if they're turned, we know that they've came loose. So let's remove this. Nothing special. Oh, there we go. That wasn't bad. We'll get this down. Oh, this is gonna make a mess on my hands. So let it drain a little bit, and we'll pull it off. So what I like to do is I pre-fill my filters, so it saves it from a dry start. And so whenever it holds half a quart or something like that, and we go back on it, we'll lube around. We'll stick it back on there as soon as this gets done. This is pretty straightforward. Obviously, screw it on. Make sure that you fill this with oil, and you lube the rubber gasket at the top, and you're gonna screw it on. The only thing that you need to know is you need to go at least 3/4 to 1 full round for it to be tight. So I have to use my other hand and get it the rest of the way on, but make sure it's tight. Next, this is very important. Remember when I talked earlier about that second banjo bolt up there? You need to make sure that that does not loosen when you take this out. If you try to slowly ratchet it, it could actually turn that. You don't want it to turn. So best thing to do is hit it with an impact one time and make sure that that doesn't turn, and hope the bottom one does. Perfect. That's what you want right there. Put it back in. We'll pull it out. Pull it out and let the dry sump drain. A lot of people, to save from doing this, will pull it from the top with a pump, an oil pump, and it saves you from having to do this. But this way you get all the oil out of the bottom of the dry sump system. So we're pretty much done draining there. We're gonna go back over here. This is the washer that was on it. I prefer to use a little bit bigger washer. It seals better around the plug here. And it is a M18. Sorry here, get them out there. It's an M18 by 1.5. Fits really nicely around there. Gives a little bit more around. So here's how the original one set on there. It set inset a little bit. So we're gonna go with the bigger gasket here. Put this in. Again, you want to be really careful with this, and you do not want to over tighten it, because when you change the oil again, if that comes loose, it involves a lot more work. So that is actually tightened down to 40 Newton meters, which is like a hair less than 30 foot-pounds. So we're gonna snug that down, and we're gonna clean everything up under here, remark our torque stripes, and so we know they're good, and then we'll go to the top. So now we're down. We're gonna add the oil, and a Murcielago with the oil fill in this location, you would put what came out of the pan back into the motor and add the rest over there. Since we don't have this, I add 8 quarts. It's a 12 quart system. It will leave you 3 quarts to put back in here. So for the sake of my phone, I've already added the 8 quarts. From holding the phone, I don't have a holder. So we've added the 8 quarts. We're gonna turn it over, watch for the oil pressure. Watch for the oil pressure to go up. Check for leaks. It's got oil pressure. Let it run for just a second. We're going to check for leaks. And shut it off now. I'm going to go ahead and add the other 3 quarts and check the fluid. So at this point, I've added the 3 quarts. It has 12 quarts in the system. I've started the car and I've let it run to the spec, which is right here. So the engine's warm. And then it's been 5 seconds since I started this video. Pull the dipstick out and see where we're at. This is gonna be kind of hard to film here. So we are right in the middle of the hash marks. It's hard to see on there, but it's right there. And that doesn't conclude this. I'm gonna go the extra step and I'll show you what I do personally, you know, that I mentioned earlier in the article, is to put the, you know, the paint pen on the bolts for torque specs. So lastly, in conclusion, what I do, and this is the way I change the oil on a Murcielago, I go through, raise the car back up, check for leaks, mark all the plugs that you've taken out, so you know if they've ever moved, if you've changed it before, or, you know, just it's peace of mind. So here we go. So these were in white. I have a yellow, use a tire marker, works. And we'll go and we'll actually mark with the white here and just stay with it since it's already there. And we'll put us a little line there, little line there. Verify no leaks. And we'll stick with this one too. And if these are torqued right, and we know where they were. And this one's gonna be a little difficult, but there we go. We're all good. That concludes this period of instruction. Ready to go for a drive.